to St. Louis and fell flat on their face. Certainly it was a feel-good game for the Rams, but I think that those good feelings will end when they travel out west to San Diego. For the Rams, I like Trey Mason as a low RB2 flex. And maybe a surprise for you, Kenny Britt. I think this is a week to get him on the gridiron as a wide receiver 3. If he didn't last week, he should be in line for 100 yards and a passing TD based on how this game should turn out. Phillip Rivers remains a QB1. May not be his best game, but it shouldn't be his worst either. Ryan Matthews an RB2. Keenan Allen, get him active. He's definitely in line for 100 yards and a score in this game, as is Antonio Gates, 60-1. And then, as I alluded to and mentioned, start the Chargers DST. They're a top 5 start against the team, giving up the second most fantasy points allowed in the league, including 7 defensive TDs allowed and 1 kick return allowed. Chargers win, Chargers win, Chargers win.
The 9-1 Cardinals travel to the defending champion Seahawks, the 6-4 Seahawks. Now, look, the Cardinals are 9-1, and they have been playing, good enough to win. They early in the season they don't blow anybody's hair back. They just win games, and I don't say that because I mean to take anything away from them. Seattle has been wildly inconsistent this year, but both of these defenses are both averaging 100 yards or less than 100 yards allowed on the ground. But Seattle is averaging 174 yards on the ground as a team per game. Something has to give here. Seattle's at home. It's still a very loud place to play that does make a difference. You cannot understate that. And the fact that I know Drew Stanton has played well and Bruce Arians has all the confidence in the world in him. I do not. I will pick the Seahawks.
And I'm going to take the Cardinals in this one. I think the Cardinals have peaked and are peaking, and just traveling there to Seattle doesn't really make a difference in this sort of situation. The score should be something like 21-18 with the Cardinals taking one on the road. If anything, the Cardinals have the better defense in terms of scoring. They're number 3 in the league compared to the Seahawks, who are number 12. And I think that really makes something here if you can get Russell Wilson out of his groove, which I think they can. In terms of the running backs, or first of all, in terms of the quarterbacks, view them both as low-end options this week. Certainly avoidable if you don't have to play them. In terms of the running backs, Marshawn Lynch and Andre Ellington, view them as low-end RB1s. They may or may not score, but you're getting them on there because they should get a substantial amount of touches, and they have the possibility of breaking one for a score. View Doug Baldwin, Larry Fitzgerald, Michael Floyd, John Brown, all as wide receiver 3s. I really do like the Cardinals wide receivers to just mess with these Seattle cornerbacks. I think that they're evenly matched in terms of what they should be able to do and not do to each other. The defenses are low-end options. If you can find a good – wow, I don't even know what I meant by my note, Keith.
Wow.
Anyway,
wow.
I like the Cardinals in Seattle.
All right. Moving right along, the Denver Broncos host the Miami Dolphins. And if Detroit, New England is the game of the week, this is right up there with it. This is going to be a upstart Dolphins defense. I say upstart because we just didn't know what to expect from this Dolphins team. We pretty much knew what the Broncos were going to be. And aside from, losing last week to St. Louis, which I did not see coming, and losing to Seattle, which can be understood, especially in overtime, they really have been true to form. They're hosting. The Dolphins have been a nice story. I think Ryan Tannehill is one of the least talked about good stories in the NFL this year. I think he is making major progress, in my humble opinion. But it's going into Denver. It's a tough place to play. I'm going to take the Broncos.
Yeah, I think you have to. If you look at the Broncos' home record and how many points they put up on the board, I think without hesitation they're going to win this game. If it were in Miami, though, I would probably consider the Dolphins in this game because I think Ryan Tannehill is going to be fully capable to keep up with this Broncos scoring machine. In fact, I like Ryan Tannehill as a borderline QB1, and you can treat him as such depending. Like if you have Matt Ryan, I would rather play Ryan Tannehill. To be completely blunt, I think Lamar Miller is benchable in this game, but then Mike Wallace and especially Jarvis Landry, wide receiver 3s. I really like Landry in this game. I think he could really show up. And I also like Charles Clay. He's a borderline TE1 because of the amount of fantasy points that the Broncos allow to the position. Once you flip it over, obviously you're looking at Peyton Manning as a must-start this week. C.J. Anderson's an RB2 because he's going to probably get around 15 touches. Demaryius Thomas, I'm interested in to see how he handles this secondary. They've come out to play, and they've shut down some pretty impressive wide receivers. But if Emmanuel Sanders misses and Julius Thomas misses, Demaryius Thomas is going to have to step it up, as is Wes Welker. So if people have forgotten about Wes Welker because he's sitting on your waivers, because I saw him being dropped in many leagues, he's a guy you could pick up and plug him in as a wide receiver 3 because he's in line to have a decent to good game, as Jacob Tamme potentially would be if Julius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders are out. Oh, and this is a great stat, Keith. At home, the Broncos beat their opponents by an average of 15 points. Broncos win.
Oh, and there you have it. The Washington Redskins travel to the San Francisco 49ers, and this is a game where if you look at the stats, it might be a little misleading because yardage-wise, they're very comparable on defense. However, Washington just is giving up almost 26 points per game. San Francisco not exactly lights out themselves, 21 points a game. But when you're playing, when you're hosting, that 5 points is really a big difference. Washington has some major question marks. Robert Griffin III said some comments that I think got blown a little bit out of proportion. I don't really think it deserved all the vitriol that everyone was giving him in the offseason or in the week following their game. He said basically that it takes a team. That's what I heard, and stop pointing the finger at him. And while he hasn't been playing well, I don't really think his comments really cross lines as much as everybody would say. That being said, it's been a rough week in the media this week for the Redskins. You can't travel across multiple time zones and not have that be in the back of your head. There is a problem going on with Washington. They're in San Francisco, and while San Francisco has question marks of its own, I think they are more than capable of winning this game. I'm picking the Niners.
Keith, this should be, I'm going to say, a high passing game. It wouldn't be of the Denver Broncos stature, but both teams allow 2 or more passing TDs per game. And I think the 49ers are going to, in the end, have the upper hand and win at home. But that being said, for the Redskins, you're starting Deshaun Jackson, Pierre Garçon, as well as Jordan Reed, but avoiding Alfred Morris and RG3 if you can. I like Colin Kaepernick for 2 TDs this week. I like Michael Crabtree to get a score, and I absolutely love the 49ers defense. The Redskins give up the 7th most fantasy points to their opponents. 49ers should take one in the bay.
All right. The Dallas Cowboys traveling to the New York Giants, the Sunday night game. Eli Manning, underwhelming last week with 5 interceptions, to say the least. The Cowboys, they come into this game, they were the darlings of the NFL, the team nobody saw coming. They are averaging 153 yards per week on the ground, and that's mostly through DeMarco Murray. If that recipe holds true, the Giants do allow 145 yards per game on the ground, then I think that they can go into New York and win this game, and I think that's exactly what we're going to see. I'm going to pick the Cowboys, probably because when Dallas makes up its mind that it's going to do A, B, and C, it pretty much has been doing A, B, and C, and the Giants you just cannot count on them from quarter to quarter, much less week to week. So once again, picking the Cowboys.
Cowboys are coming off their bye week, and they should have taken that opportunity to get healthy, rest up, and get ready for these Giants who really, it's an open book on them. I like DeMarco Murray. You have already mentioned that the Giants are giving up 145 yards, but they've given up 13 TDs to date, which means they're easily going to give up a rushing touchdown to him. You're starting Des Bryant as a wide receiver 1. Tony Romo is a mid to low QB 1. And start Jason Witten. Believe it or not, they're giving up enough that Jason Witten should actually turn up the volume this week and do some good things for once instead of sitting at the line and blocking all day long. I like Odell Beckham Jr. I mean, the kid has been outstanding regardless of the matchups. Even if he doesn't score, he's putting up enough yardage to be worthwhile as a low-end wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 3. Give Rashad Jennings a go. I don't think that this is a bad game for him. The Cowboys do give up at least 1 rushing touchdown per game, and if they give him 100 yards rushing, I'll take that too. And lastly, start the Cowboys defense this week as a low DST1. With Eli Manning, you're hoping that he throws another 5 interceptions. That's all I need to say. Cowboys win.
And the final game of the week, the Baltimore Ravens traveling to the New Orleans Saints, the Monday night game. The Saints losing last week at home at the hands of the Cincinnati Bengals. They also lost Brandon Cooks for the season, being placed on injured reserve. I don't know how much that's really going to affect. He did contribute. No, there's no denying that. But if you're a fantasy owner of Brandon Cooks, it was never enough. Baltimore, on the other hand, their last game was beating the Tennessee Titans 21-7. They should come into this game fresh. I think their defense is a little underrated. They're averaging. They don't give up much on the ground, but that's okay because the Saints don't really run that much on the ground, although they are averaging 125 yards on the ground per game. The question is, do you believe the Saints can pass the ball at home? Do you believe that they are better than they were last week? I do. I think last week was an anomaly, and I'm going to pick the Saints at home.
Yeah, this is the kind of game that should play to the passing game for both teams. The score should be somewhere in the mid to upper 20s. I'm calling it 27-24. I'm calling the Saints win because, like you, Keith, I think last week was I won't just call it an anomaly, but I also think that the Ravens this week, I'm looking at their secondary, and it's just not the same secondary that we had earlier in the season. And despite the injuries that the Saints recently suffered, I think a combination of Jimmy Graham, Marcus Colson, and Kenny Stills will be able to get enough done that the Saints should win one at home. In fantasy, I like Joe Flacco this week as a low QB1. I think you can get him active with the thought that he gets you 2 TDs, maybe a third. Justin Forsett, I think, is a must start. He should be a top 12 option against a Saints team that have given up 10 rushing TDs to date. Torrey Smith, a wide receiver 2. Steve Smith, I know he's been struggling since his hot start. Get him in there. I mean, this is a team that he played against often in the NFC South, and I think it is certain that he will do some work on the gridiron as well as get a touchdown grab. The Ravens DST, I think you could look at him as a low-end option, but in my leagues that I have them, I have found other defenses on the waiver wire, so you don't have to play them this week, even though they are one of the better defenses in the league. For the Saints, Drew Brees, Marcus Colston, Kenny Stills, Jimmy Graham, all starts this week. Colson and Stills as wide receiver 3s. Mark Ingram, he's going to struggle, I think. I think he'll get some yards, maybe 80 to 100, but I don't see him getting into the end zone. I like him as an RB2. Saints come marching in. They win. Saints win.
All right. So what game would you say you're least comfortable about?
Least comfortable about. I'll tell you, the Jets-Bills game does bother me because of the weather conditions, the fact that the Bills do not get the opportunity to practice. But I think the flip side of all that is the fact that they know this team. They've played them before, and they're just getting the week off. I don't think that the practice was necessarily necessary if they got all the information that they needed from the coaches via email or via computer. The Buccaneers-Bears, I think, is a tough game to call. I picked the Bengals over the Texans. I think that was a tough call.
Yeah, that one I could go either way on, really. And I know I may sound like an idiot for saying this, but I really got a feeling about the Lions in New England, and I don't know why. Maybe it's just my gut playing games with me. I picked the Pats because I'm not going to pick against them at home. But sometimes Detroit's defense can be that good. You know what I mean? You can't sit back and you can't throw the ball 52 times against the Lions. You know what I mean? You have to be able to run the ball. It's very tough, and I know Jonas Gray had a nice week last week, especially if you're a fantasy football owner. But I just got a funny feeling in the back of my mind about them.
Yeah, I'd say the Ravens-Saints game as well because Joe Flacco is the kind of quarterback that can turn it up. Whether he does it this week, I don't know. I'd rather rely on Drew Brees turning it up. And then that Cardinals-Seahawks game, picking the Cardinals on the road at Seattle. I think that's another game that I think the Cardinals are going to win, but I could see it going the other way.
All right, and final question here.
Roster question.
Yeah, here we go. Trey Mason or Shane Vereen?
I'm going to have to say Trey Mason because he's the number one running back there, and I could see him getting 100 yards. Shane Vereen, I just don't know that you're guaranteed anything with him.
If it would be anything, I would be inclined to think it's more of a passing impact, more of a receiving. He's not going to run the ball against Detroit.
Yeah, I mean, look, if I'm right and